Masehet Hullin Daf Yod Aleph Amud Aleph second line. Minah Mil Tata Amur Banan. Nice. We brought the Mikor, we brought the source for Hazakah. Now you want to bring another source. How do we know what Hachamim always says? Zil Bataru Ba, we go after the majority. Must be none. What do you mean from where? Tiktiv Ahare Rabim La'atot. Pasuk clearly says you go after the many. Regarding a majority in front of us, like Kegon Tesha Hanid Sanhedrin, if nine kosher stores that have majority and you find something, you go after the majority. Or if you have like majority that go through Sanhedrin, judges in a court case, look, Kimi Ba'alan, that's not a question. Tikkun where the question is majority, Rubad Lete Kaman, where the majority is not in front of us. Kegon, Katanu Ktana where a boy and a girl, let's say who are minors, they do yibum, for example. Minan, how do you know that in such a case you go according to majority and you consider them husband and wife after that yibum? Meaning, if the yibum was done when they were minors, even though or when the boy or girl was a minor, you don't know whether or not they're going to develop into a functional, fertile person that can have children. And Yibum's not work with someone who's unable to have children. So maybe you should be nervous and hoshesh that it won't be a good marriage. We say, no, you don't have to worry about that. You go after the majority. Okay, so how do you know that? The Gemara says, "Ma Rabbi Elazar, Atya Meresha She'ola." You make a gzira shava from the head of an olah. The Amar, the pasuk says, Amar krab. V'nitach utal tachya. The Kohen shall cut the olah into pieces. Utal tachya, you cut out into pieces. V'lo netachal tachim, you don't count small pieces. You don't cut up the head of the olah before offering it. V'nehu shema yedni kav krum shamach. Wow, if you're not cutting it open, maybe you have to be worried that the brain membrane has been punctured. It's terefah pasul. Allah must be. We go off the majority since most animals have no problem with their brain membrane. That's how you go majority. The Gemara says, Mimai, who says it's a good proof? Dilma de fale maybe the coin actually opens the head and checks it. That you can't cut it in half. But if you can open it a little bit while leaving the head majority attached, let them know, no problem. More better than Amar, different proof. Atem mishvirat aisim Pesach. He brings Zershra from the halacha. You can't break a bone on the Pesach of the Quran Pesach. The Amar Torah says, "Ve'aitzem lo tishburu bo." You should not break a bone. Again, if you can't open the skull of the animal, how do you know it's kosher? Maybe the membrane's broken, ripped. Allah mishum darin zepater must be going majority. The Gemara says, "Man, who says that?" Maybe you could put a coal in the skull, let the skull, the head burn through. But then you could check. It says, someone cuts the sinews or burns the bones of a Korban Pesach, and bo mishum shura. It's not a problem, and therefore Korban Pesach is not a proof because you could check. Okay. We're not about talking about a different proof. Atem me'aliyah would bring a proof from the lamb's tail. Amar Rahman Torah says, "Halbo ha'aliyah tmima." The fat and the whole tail should be put on the be'ach. V'leichav shema nefseka hut ha'sidra. If you put in the whole section of the tail on top of the be'ach, maybe the spinal cord of the animal was severed, and that's terefa. Ela mishum d'nei zebura must be that we go off the majority. The word says no. Maybe you want to say, oh, it's not a good proof. Maybe you're disconnecting the tail below the spinal cord, so the cord remains with the body. That's not true. Amar Rahman Torah says opposite the tushy bone. Makom shakleda asot. It was by the kidneys. Therefore, we have the majority. We have to rely on the majority. We might. Still, it's not a good proof. Maybe you do cut it open and check it. If you want to say, oh, you can't check it, you have to keep it whole. You can't cut it in half. If you're still partially attached, no problem. Still, no proof. We tried reading three pesukim, not at three sources. Rav Shesha did Rav Aidi. Amar, they even proof Atya me'egla arufa. We bring a proof from egla arufa. Right, the case of the guy who dies between two cities, murder victim. You're not sure who kills him. You measure it to close the city. They bring a korban. They kill the egla arufa. The Amar Rahmana arufa kashish lemati. When you have to decapitate the calf, it has to be whole and remain whole afterward. How can you do it? If you can't check, if you can't open it, then who says it's not terefa? Must be you go with the majority. Or it's not proof. What's the difference? Meaning, you don't need to. It could be terefa. Granted, who cares if you're not eating it? Whereas that's not true. Because why? Kapara ktibla kikachim mentions kapara, just like a sacrificial animal, and therefore it cannot be terefa. Must be you go after majority. Rabbi Rav Shila Amar he has another source. Atya Miprad ma bring proof from Baradma. Tamar Hamtura says Vishahat Visarav slaughter and burn. Mashahi Hakish like the slaughter has to be whole. And so too after you burn it while it's whole as well. If you can't open up the animal at all and you're slaughtering and burning it right away, maybe it's terefa. Where it says no, Elab Mishum Damina B'Tzil must be a majority. Where it says if you want to say who cares, Hatat Kriya Hatat, and therefore it needs to be kosher. And the fact that we don't check must be we go after majority. Racha bar Yaakov, my different source. Atya mesa'ira mishtaleach. We bring the goat that we throw off the cliff on Yom Kippur. The Torah says, "Velakach et shnei hase'irim," two goats. She is shneim serving to be equal, identical. Velechush, maybe it's concerned dilma had minayu terefah mi terefa. Ela mishum b'mazim taturba. So it can't be terefa if you throw off the cliff. You can't check. It's alive. So it must be. We're trying to bring a proof that you go after majority and it's kosher. If you want to say also there, maybe it doesn't make a difference. We say it's not true because the raffle for the Azazel goat won't work unless the Hashem Korban one also works. Therefore, it cannot be terefa. Maybe you do check it after you throw it off the cliff. The goat falls down the mountain and doesn't reach halfway down before it becomes into tiny pieces of limbs. It gets torn completely. So therefore, you can't check it afterward. Must be you go after the majority. But my different proof. Atya we bring a proof from someone who hits his father or mother. The Torah says execute him. Maybe why if he hits his father, why you kill him? Maybe it's not his father. You go off the majority. The majority means that this woman was with her husband, and therefore you can say that it's his father. Umay, maybe it's not majority. Maybe you have to worry about maybe they were in prison together and therefore you know for sure they were together. The Gemara says there can be no guardian against immorality. There's no guarantee. Even in prison, the prison guard can do something, God forbid, and therefore there's no way of for sure knowing a biological father, and therefore we go after majority. Rav Kana, different source. Atya mehoreget the nefesh. We bring a proof from someone who killed someone. We execute the murderer. How can you kill him? Maybe you have to worry the victim was a dead man. Maybe he had a fatal terefa, he had a fatal injury, and therefore you don't get killed for killing someone who's going to die. Allah mishum daminan zebatarabah must be a majority and majority not terefot. Proof. Gemara says v'chitem the maybe you want to say that you checked the victim afterward. How come available? You can't do that. You can't defile his body for examination. We don't do autopsies. Gemara says v'chitem mishum deibud mishmah. Maybe you want to say you do autopsy because you're going to kill someone for it. Nevertheless, therefore you should do it. You still have it. It's still not a good proof because maybe where the guy stabbed him, for example, he stabs him in the heart. Maybe they got a heart defect. Must be, you go after majority. Ravina doesn't prove. You bring a proof from Zomi witnesses. Zomi witnesses is from Masechet Makot. Zomi witnesses, there's two witnesses testify that Reuben killed Shimon. Two other witnesses come and say, how can you testify that happened on Monday? You were with us on Monday. And what happens is, since they were trying to kill Reuben, those witnesses get killed instead of Reuben. It's a chidush. Otherwise, in general, two contradicting witnesses just cancel each other out. Anyhow, what do we see? Amar says, "You do to them like what they tried to do." Who says maybe they tried to testify in Reuven, maybe Reuven was terefa, and therefore the Nachayab mitah. The Gemara says, "Ela mishum zamin b'tzayro," must be one majority. Okay, v'chitema. Maybe you do check. You check to make sure the guy's not terefa. But remember, it says, you can't check him. He's still alive. Because if the guy is successful in killing Reuven, then the Edim Zomin are no longer chayav. It has to be what they tried to do, not what they did. And therefore, there's no way to check this guy if he's terefa or he's alive. Ravashi says, we basically went through half of the shas, all these different sugyot. Ravashi says, Atem shechita atzma, you learn from the halacha of shechita. The Amar Achmana shechot ve'echot. Rava says you can slaughter and eat it. Maybe you're slaughtering. Why are we worried that maybe you're slaughtering in the place where there's a hole in the esophagus trachea? Yeah, maybe it's terefa. We go after majority. Maybe it's not a good proof. I'm reading that one taking the Rav Kana. I want to mention from Kana. I'm reading Rav Kana coming to Rav Asimi. Some people said Rav Kana said Rav Simi. I'm not laying. Some people said, and he said, "V'dilma heicha efshar efshar, heicha lo efshar." Maybe it's not true. Maybe you go after Rav when you can. And if you're able to check something, you check something. But if you can't, you can't. So therefore, who says it's a source for you to go after the majority if the facts are discernible and can be determined? Where it says the automatically, because if you don't say this, that it made the Haish Meuta in general, the mayor who is worried about minority things, right? The mayor in general, throughout Shas, if there's a majority, he's still choshesh stringently for the minority. Hachanamid lo achel b'sra. If that's the case, he'll never eat meat because maybe in the minority cases it's today father he slaughtered it, he'll never eat meat. So therefore, we do distinguish cases where if you can verify, you verify. Maybe say Meir never eats meat. Pesach v'chotashim ma'ik mimari. What are you talking about the korbanot? Must be that in cases Rebbe Meir would require you to check if you're able to ascertain if the facts are correct. Achanami Sato as well. Regarding majority as well. There's like minority to check, majority as well. If you check, you check. Make sure you can find it. Men, amen.